Welcome back, everyone, to Verge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, talking about all things in technology. I'm one of your hosts, James Montemagno, and with me every single week is the one, the only Frank Kruger. How's it going, buddy?
Hey James, how you doing? Your background seems a little bit different. Is this a virtual background? Are you just playing with us? You're also there's more light on your face than normal. I don't feel like you're at home. That's all I'm
So,
saying.
and you can tell. I mean, I know that I've probably run this audio through AI to enhance it, but one, I'm not feeling super great. My throat. I'm doing a lot of talking to some presentations today. Um, been talking all week and long flights, but I'm here in Madrid, Spain, and at dotnet 2025 Spain, the dotnet conference in Spain run by Plain Concepts. And Glenn Condren and I had a keynote today, and I also had a session on .NET Maui and Blazor hybrid stuff. So it's been a pretty fun week. Got to talk to a lot of people, hence the raspy voice. But it's been really cool. And I figured what we could actually do is actually talk about some cool things that I personally learned that I think have happened in the world of .NET and in releases and upcoming releases. But it was the stuff that Glenn showed in part of the keynote, and not the stuff I showed because I know that stuff. It was mostly Copilot. But I figured that we could talk about three cool things that I want to talk about, and I want to see if you kind of know about them, and if our listeners maybe know about them or don't know about them. We could double click on them for like a little mini lightning
This sounds
stuff.
fun.
Okay.
And yeah, I'll try to go on and on and on so you don't have to speak so much because it does sound painful to me listening to you talk. So I'll let you introduce the topics and then I'll tell you how much I don't know about them. And everyone can please write in and say, Frank, you're falling behind. You got to keep up.
Heather did find me some Ricolas here in Madrid, con herbas de los Alpes Suizos. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, and Heather would. Yeleni, but she speaks fluent Spanish. So, okay, number one, did you know that .NET Aspire has a CLI?
Look, let me be honest. I assumed it was all CLI based because what there's a CLI revolution happening. It feels like no one's building UIs anymore. Everything's like, here, learn this 30 line thing that takes 20 arguments and sometimes double dashes, sometimes single dashes. So, James, no, I did not know it had a command line interface. Let me ask you, what interface did it have prior to the command line?
Well, so that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked. So specifically, it just used, .NET, you know, .NET new template. Well, so in
A project file, right? It's code in a project file because this is code backed.
yeah, I mean, it
Application.
should there were templates, so you could just do .NET New Aspire template, and there was like starter projects and other things like that. There's integrations into Visual Studio and VS Code, so you could say right click, add Aspire orchestrator support, or you could say add a Aspire package or integration into it. But for the most part, what would happen is when you would run the app host, it would boot up all of your stuff and then just launch the dashboard, right? And then like, boom, there it is.
Right.
But in .NET Aspire 9.2, they introduced a Aspire CLI, and they introduced some more support in 9.3. It's in preview currently. However, what's really neat about it is it's just a .NET global tool, as one would assume.
I love it.
It's got to be.
I love global tools because it used to be so impossible to publish like a little command line thing if you came up with it. I remember the days because you'd be like, hey, everyone, please go compile my project and run it. And you get zero uptick. Now you can just say, like, whatever, .NET tool install, blah, blah, blah. And you just get stuff. So good on them. It's the .NET tool install aspire.cli. That's the one you want. Hyphen pre-release. Is it still pre-release?
I think it may be. I don't see actual
Good.
documentation on it, but I believe it may be using Spectre Council or some other council prettyification
Yeah.
thing. There's lots of emojis. There is a lot of updates and widgets and spinny things.
I was actually laughing at the because you sent me a link and hopefully you'll link to it in the podcast. Um, just like a little MSDN article on it, and it's all emojis. I'm not used to this. I'm not accustomed to so many emojis in my MSDN articles. I'm sorry, learn.microsoft.com. Um, it's just it's funny. It actually reminds me of like AI stuff because all the AIs are putting emoji into everything these days.
They'll use emojis if you tell them to use emojis. That is for sure. And often when you don't, they still will. Anyways, oh, we a lot of people we started doing this actually in the .NET pre-releases for like .NET 9
Okay.
previews and .NET 10 previews. Is every little section has its own emoji, so you can easily jump to it, which is pretty nice. And people love emojis, and it's a nice visual breakup indicator. The hard part is making sure that you have a emoji that represents it. So like I like the breaking changes is like a broken heart.
I wanted to say that one. You stole mine. That's my favorite. The broken heart breaking changes. I would have felt a little less bad. No, you should never have breaking changes, but I would have felt a little less bad if there were more broken hearts in all the docs and everything. Well,
Yeah.
it is technical. The CLI is in preview, so I don't even consider that a breaking change. If you're in preview, no breaks. No
Yeah.
breaks.
So the CLI is pretty cool because what it does is it gives you this command line tool, but it enables you to easily do new, run, add to add packages and also publish. And it also does a lot of smart things. So one of the things often, especially if you're using like VS Code, for example, I run into this all the time where I gotta like go hunt down the program CS file, figure out the file, make sure I'm in the right thing. I'm in all over the place. I just want to run the thing. So now I can just say Aspire run and it'll find the app host for me and it'll automatically just run it and build it and compile it, just like if I was inside of it. But the cool part is that Aspire new will go make sure that it has like the latest templates because those just ship as separate NuGet packages. So normally you have to make sure they're all updated and things like that, but it'll go off, find all the latest packages, list them all out to you. The run is pretty neat too, because what it will do is in the CLI, it will show you all the build steps. And then what it'll do is it'll give you like the link to the dashboard and it'll give you links to all the resources. So if you have like a few backends, maybe some Redis cache, maybe the front end, maybe something else, it'll like give you a nice little table in line with like nice ASCII art, basically. That will give you a grid of different, there's not a lot of photos in here, so I'm trying to describe it to you.
Yeah.
Um, but you kind of would understand what I'm talking about is that you have this thing. So often it's like, oh, I want to run it, but I don't necessarily always want to jump directly into the dashboard every single time. So this gives you this nice little command line to do it.
Yeah, and that's always like a development mode, right? I don't want to run Aspire run on my production server. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good. I'm just being clear for those of us who aren't into the deployment world. I write apps, James. I'm a simple person. I make a .exe and I just hand it to users.
Yeah.
Um, so all the integrations are listed, I would hope, because I think that's the whole power of Aspire. I'm curious about, and I'm sorry, some of these are just Aspire questions. I'm curious about the publishing artifacts because the example has using Docker Compose as your
Yep.
publishing artifact. Is that the one that's usually demoed? Is that the one usually used?
No, not usually.
Oh,
So a lot of people so what's fascinating about Aspire and how it publishes things. So, a lot of developers, including myself, use Aspire just for local development.
dev mode.
Um,
Okay.
Yep, dev mode. That way you have all of your great open telemetry and traces and things like that. Some developers also do publish directly to Azure, for example. So normal demo is doing an AZD up. And what will
Oh,
happen is that's the Azure Developer CLI. And when you do AZD up, it'll scan your project and say, hey, this is Aspire. And then what it'll say is, hey, I can publish it to these places, which is usually Azure Container Apps or maybe Azure Functions. Um, or actually, no, it's an Azure function inside of an Azure Container App. But it basically containerizes everything and then ships it up to ACA because if you put everything in a container, then it'll just work. You got a cache container, you got a RabbitMQ container, all the containers, all the things. So that's been pretty good. But a lot of people are like, hey, I don't actually necessarily, I'm using Azure or maybe I want to go to my other deployment that I normally have. So you can do other publisher types, and there's a few of them. There's like a Docker Compose. You can publish obviously to container apps, not an app service. You can also do something called like Aspirate, which I think just like does a publish to Kubernetes basically. And what is happening here is Aspire, when it publishes, is it's publishing a manifest file. It's a JSON file. It's usually transparent to everybody, but basically it's saying, hey, here's what's in the project, kind of like a Docker Compose, but it has information like, is this a container? Is this an image? What tag do you want? All this stuff. And then publishing tools can then go consume that and say, oh, I see that you have a front end and a back end and a Redis container. I know how to publish this to XYZ, and it'll go and publish the thing. So it's kind of like this step process. So I think it's kind of inverted where all of our demos would say AZD up, where we're saying,
Okay.
hey, I want to publish this thing to Docker Compose. I want to publish this thing to Kubernetes. I want to publish this thing to ACA. And then it will call the right tool automatically. So it's kind of flipping that, which I think is a better demo in my opinion. Also, it looks very Microsoft-y, like only Azure type of thing, which is not what they're trying to go for at all, because there's AWS integrations and all these other things. Right. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was trying to use some cloud storage recently, and first I tried to use the web UI, and the web UI says you can only upload 100 files at a time. I'm like, well, that's not going to cut it. I have literally 100,000 files to upload. Then, so they recommended a command line tool. I downloaded that command line tool, got it authenticated, did all the gross brew install stuff, and then the tool's like, I can only upload one file at a time. I'm like, well, you are a useless tool. So then I had to get a third tool, learn how to install that one, learn how to authenticate with that one, and learn its terrible syntax. So actually, I really appreciate not having to learn. Like, I'm sure everyone who does Azure knows your AZD up thing, but me, I'd much rather write Aspire publish, because that seems a lot simpler. So I kind of get where they're coming from of inverting that. That's neat.
So there's a whole bunch of other things that they did, like things like caching and make it easier and faster to run the applications. But anyways, it's kind of interesting. And I think that the cool part is that, and I'm pretty sure this is what Glenn demoed, is like, let's say you wanted to run like add Redis cache. Like today it's kind of a manual 2-step process. You add it to the host project, so it knows like how to containerize it, the name of it, blah, blah, blah. So it can do service discovery and start it up in the app host. And then you would integrate, Redis into your back end or front end. But now what it'll do is say, hey, I want to add Redis. And it'll say, okay, cool, we're going to add to the app host because that's standard. And then what Redis do you want to add to what project? So you can say, oh, add distributed cache to this thing, add this thing to this thing. And then it knows about your project. It's going to be kind of smart about it compared to right click, add this integration. So that's kind of cool.
Super cool, because I would not have ever guessed at the 2-step process. Exactly. I mean, of course, yeah, putting up a server is separate from accessing the server. That makes sense to me. But if you hadn't said those words, it would not have occurred to me. So
yeah,
yep. In concurrence. What's the other? I just have to know. What are the other demo integrations people do? Redis seems like the low-hanging fruit. Is there databases?
Yeah, Postgres, a lot of Postgres, RabbitMQ, storage,
Sure.
Azure storage, SignalR,
ooh, like that.
MongoDB. You could do Azure SQL. You could do it's a lot of Redis cache. Let me just be honest.
It's Redis. It's all Redis to set up Redis. Got it.
Pretty much, lots of Redis cache and lots of cache. If you're not caching, then I don't know what's going on. Those are a lot of them. A lot of like message queuing going on, but there's all sorts of different testing, different integrations that you can do as well. So, in fact, I think if you just go to the documentation for Aspire, if you tap on Aspire, the very top there, / Aspire, you can say integrations, and there's things like Elasticsearch, there's Keycloak, there's MySQL, there's Orleans, Postgres, Quadrant, RabbitMQ, Redis, SQL Server, there's static web apps, Bun, Dapper, Dino, Go, Java Spring, Node.js, Python, Olama, Mealy Search, Rust apps.
That's right.
Data.
You were telling me
SQLite. Gotta have them all.
SQLite. Yeah, I think you were telling me you use Aspire for Olama just because it's easier to set up. I always found that kind of hilarious.
Just runs it right in a container.
No one wants to set that stuff up.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyways, that's the word. All right, number 2, Frank. Number 2.
Okay.
Did you know that you no longer need any CS proj at all? Just they're gone. Get out of here.
I did know about this. I think we mentioned it with the Was it .NET 10? Who introduced this? Is this just being able to run the .cs file automatically? Is it that feature, or
Yes,
is
it
it
is.
something else? Yes.
No, that is it. It is .NET Run app.cs, but I saw a very cool demo. So Damien did a session at Build, and maybe we linked to it. Maybe we didn't. I don't remember if we did or not.
I feel like I, somehow I knew about this. I don't know how I knew about this. Everyone, please write in and tell me how I knew about this.
It took over the internet when Damien posted the video and then did a blog post on it. So I think, and there have been tons of videos from like Chapsis and other influencers and MVPs. I didn't do a video on it, but I come from a very, I guess one of the challenges with C# and .NET and in general is like onboarding people. It
Yeah.
is, I think we talked about scripting and stuff like that. I think we did talk
Yeah.
about it, but I think the pitch that Glenn gave was a little bit better. So just like .NET itself and C# itself have been like trying to simplify themselves to make it easier to learn, easier to like run code. If you think of like a file new console app, right? It's like a line of code, right? There's no more like ceremony. There's like minimal, like the CS project is super small. In fact, with even the solution file is getting simplified, right? For solutions,
Yeah.
if you use solutions, there's all these different things. Now in like VS Code, you can
Well,
run solutionless things too.
yeah, just to interject, that was the first breakthrough because I remember always having to have solutions to do anything in .NET. So I
Yeah.
remember, I mean, this is a while ago now, but gosh, it was so liberating when it was like, no, just the CS proj is fine because it has references to all the other
Yeah.
projects it needs to talk to. I still run into weird edge cases where every so often I need a solution file, and it's mostly just an IDE thing now. Like solution files are just ways to group projects together. They're not
Yeah.
needed by the build tool, any of
No.
the build tools really. So I just remember that was the first break. So now this is the second step, kind of the best step in my opinion. I'm curious about all the defaults and everything. But being able to say .NET run and then just the code file, that's a huge deal. Does it work for VB files? I'm sorry, I just had to think about VB, and does it work for F sharp? Does it work for my buddies VB and F sharp?
I don't know. At least I think it's just C# files
Okay.
in general. And, the whole idea, right, is it's like quick to start, no project files are required. So it's great for learning, experimenting,
Mhm.
small script files. Like you can think about it in general as like you have a bunch of code that's in a gist, whatever you want to say. Someone yelled at me recently. And then, or you have some code on documentation, you just want to run it, right? Just like open the app.cs, .NET run, file.cs, whatever it is,
Yeah.
run it, right? So I think like that is very on par with other programming languages. Like if you think
Yeah.
about that, it is like it's out there. Python, JavaScript, you can just do this today. Like you can just run it. And this really brings it up. But the next kind of question is, how do you do things like get NuGet packages, specify an SDK if you want to do ASP.NET Core stuff and build some APIs? Well, they introduced this thing called pound and then semicolon or colon semicolon colon two dots
Two dots,
colon.
colon.
I'm very tired. Very tired. Okay, so
Feeling great.
basically what this is, it is a like runtime throwaway. It's like a compiler
Mhm.
flag in a way, kind of like if we did pound if, but it's pound colon and then stuff that it can do. So you can say pound hashtag colon package and then say, humanizer and then add a specific version number. And
Yep.
what that does is when you do .NET run, it'll say, oh, I got to install some NuGet packages, bingo bango, right? Just as if you had a CS proj. But then you can also do pound colon SDK and then specify the SDK. So if you were working in these things, you could do pound colon property langver preview, right? So you can start to specify these things in general, which is like really, really cool. And that's a really nice sort of way of being able to experiment with NuGet packages, right? Like if you SQLite-net, what do you got to create a project? You got to do a thing. Like imagine you just have scripts and say, copy the script and run it. That's
Mhm.
kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's a huge deal. Oh, but I think you buried the lead. Like, yeah, they have hash colon, but more importantly, they have shebang, hash with a bang sign, and that if you're not from a Unix world, you could always put a shebang at the top of a file, say what app should execute that file. Now all your code files can run just by themselves at the command line. So you don't even need to put that .NET run stuff in. You can just put shebang user bin .NET run on a Unix system. I don't think that'll work on Windows. Who knows? Maybe it would work on Windows.
WSL, WSL.
WSL, yeah, there we go. That's super cool because let me tell you actually, and I'm not going to say this is best practice or anything, but let me tell you how I actually use this in Python. So I'll write out a Python module, and because it's Python, I pack a lot into that module. And I want to have some basic tests that run on it. And in Python, you can detect if that file was loaded as the main file or not. So I would always have a little check, is this the main file? If it's the main file, then I run a bunch of unit tests. I'm going to do that in C# because I don't love creating unit test projects, but you know what I love writing are tests. I love to just write a big function that does a bunch of tests in it. And if you just put, if any file is actually executable, then it's pretty basic to just go in and if this file is run from the command line, then run through all these tests. It's just I don't know. It's a weird habit I got into years ago, writing PHP, writing C, writing a lot of different languages. I made every file able to self-host itself and run its own little diagnostics and things like that. So for me, that's a big deal to be able to make any file actually executable on its own. Since I don't really do the .NET thing of putting like every class and every line of code in a separate file, I tend to think more in a modular way where see also SQLite-net, where there's one big C# file that is basically a module, not one object at a time. So super cool for me that shebang is supported. All the other stuff, yeah, packages. You need the packages. F# did it first. #ref. You could always reference a package. But good to see good old C# keeping up with F#. I really do I want to see this. I want to see it work also for F#. So we have to yell at the .NET team. No sure cross language support.
But it's super nice. I mean, I think that it's really cool, and I think that hopefully, you can think about it not just for like scripting, but learning and experimenting, and then also there's a grow up story too. So it's actually like there's a .NET project convert, and you give it the app.cs, and what it will do is it'll create a CS project for you. It'll set the target version, it'll set the SDK type, it'll set
That's hilarious
packages for you. So if you want to grow up, it's like go time any more than one file, then you're good to go, Frank.
You're like, you know what my project's missing? Some XML. I need to write some XML.
But they thought about it because at some point you may be experimenting. You're like, you know what? I'm going to need to do something bigger.
Yeah. So just to be clear, it's hashtag : package. That's the one everyone's going to want because that's how you get your nougats into this puppy. And then the shebang at the top. This is great. This feels like one of those hashtag finally things. Like, oh God, why didn't we have this before? This is so nice.
It's cool. Yeah. It's super nice. And you can give it a try. It's in .NET 10 Preview 4, but Preview 5 is out, so you should definitely try that. There's a bunch of enhancements there. So pretty cool in general. So it's nice to kind of just see this. I mean, there have been tons of scripting things that have been out there for like ever, right? But it's nice to have
be clear. Sorry, yeah. I don't think it'll pick up other files in the directory, right? So that's a little difference between the project convert, because the project convert would include all the files in the directory. And not sure, at least reading through the quick docs, whether you can reference another project. You can reference a package, but I'm not sure if you can reference another project. But this is just meant to be a small little thing for writing scripts. It's not supposed to have the full project ecosystem. I'm just trying to understand its limits.
Yeah, I don't know. And obviously still in development, so giving feedback there is great. I'm not sure because when you do the project convert, you give it a CS file, so it's not. I don't think it's looking at.
Yeah, it's unclear. Sorry, at least I need to type this in and run it. I just don't want to make the clickety clack sounds on the podcast. But at least from the generated CS proj they show, it would include all C# files, not just the one. So if I had a directory of 10 C# files and say .NET
Yeah,
project convert just one of those files,
that's true.
it would actually include all of them.
Yeah, because it's going to create it inside of there. It's going to take the app.cs and it's going to put it into the program CS, but then all the other files would be there. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So if you were,
So
and then the question becomes, can you do £file and then reference another project or file?
yeah.
To reference. So you're going to be, that's actually a pretty cool kind of, because then you get multiple files. You're just going to run the main file, which then would load other files. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know.
Just throwing it out there, give me what is it? Give me a penny and I'll ask for a pound. Is that the phrase? That's not the phrase, but you know what I'm saying. Give me a penny, I'll ask for a pound.
Oh, it says here. It says here in the road ahead. It says, in upcoming previews, we're aiming to improve the experience of working with file-based apps in VS Code with enhanced IntelliSense, which I think they already did, improve performance and support for debugging. That's cool. At the command line, we're exploring support for file-based apps with multiple files and ways to make running file-based apps faster.
Okay.
So it does
look, the command line. I would still like to put it in the file though, but yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that is the idea there. So, but that might be
that's cool.
A .NET 11 feature, maybe.
So they say they even, and in the article that I'm sure you'll link to, they have a give us feedback. So it's just in the .NET SDK GitHub repo. You can send some feedback, and I'm sure an AI will respond to you.
Yes, correct. Correct. Cool. All right. Last one I have is a shorty, goodie and shorty, but I don't think we've talked about this, or if we have, I think here's the thing. We probably talked about these, but then I probably was like, I didn't see it in a real world application. You know what I mean? Well, I'll understand it fully until, maybe I just saw Glenn talk about it. But we've definitely talked about this, but I now understand it and why you'd want to use it, which is the brand new C#14 field keyword, Frank. Field.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure
no. I've been waiting for this forever because this is something.
Okay.
Well, okay, we all love auto properties because no one wants to write out a full property where you write the backing field and the property at the same time.
Yes,
and
you are.
So,
so we would say first name, squiggly, get set.
Yeah.
That's an auto property. If you're coming from Java, you would do get first name, set last name. Terrible. We have auto properties. They're amazing.
They're amazing because I remember programming in Object Pascal and finally and learning that 3-step. Like you had to write the field, the getter, the setter. It was always 3 lines of code for every property you wanted, no matter how simple and short. We got that down to 1 line. Thank you, auto properties. But every so often you want to do like maybe an auto get with maybe a little bit more complicated of a set or something like that. This would often happen to me because the default setter always executes, but maybe you want to do like a property change notification, or you want to do some validation on it. If someone passes in a null for first name, maybe you want to make it blank or name that person John. Don't do that.
Or throw an exception, right?
Never throw an exception from a property. No, never throw an exception from the property getter. Maybe
from the setter, maybe, or the setter.
Yeah, from the setter. Yeah, good. So in that case, it was a real penalty, honestly. And I felt it. I viscerally felt this. I'm like, here I have this beautiful auto property, but if I want to do anything in the setter, all of a sudden I have to go, oh gosh, find a place in the file to put the field, remember the name, type out the name, remember how to initialize it, then debate whether I should initialize the field in the constructor or the property in the constructor, because I always have that debate.
Is it underscore? Is it this?
And then you got to name the stupid thing. Is it capitalized? Is it underscore? Oh, which editor config am I using on this project? The AI chose the wrong thing. There was always a lot of drama around it. So the way I understand it, because I actually haven't used this feature yet, but boy howdy, am I going to use it, is you now have the field keyword, which will automatically, if you had an auto property, it was generating a field, a private field for you in that class, but you never knew its name.
And you never had access to it.
You never had access to it. The compiler just would not tell you. Now you do have access to it. And so, two things. You don't have to know its name because it's just called field. What a great
Yeah.
name. And two, you don't have to have any of the debates about whether it should be underscore, M underscore, capitalized or not capitalized, any of that silliness. Because guess what? It's just called field and you just have access to it. Um, it sounds so small, but man, what a mental relief it is for me because I just hated that 3-step jig that you had to do every time. Now it's just, oh, I want the benefits of an auto property because I'm a lazy typer. I think fewer lines of code have fewer bugs, flat out. And so I love this feature. James, I want it.
Well, the interesting part is that specifically it's actually in C Sharp 13. Like this is actually like
Yeah.
a C Sharp 13 preview feature. So it's a
Preview
feature
feature though. Yeah.
that's in C Sharp 13, but you need to turn it on by using preview things. But it's just going to be there for C Sharp 14, which is great. And the demo that Glenn did, he said, imagine you had a first name, but then you wanted to trim it. You want to make sure it's trimmed, and you want to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone that's setting things don't need to set call trim 1,000 times. You always want to trim it no matter what if it's not null. The only way to do this is in the setter, right? And the only way of, I guess you could do it in you would want to do it in the setter, not the getter, or else you'd be treading all the time.
Yeah.
You would then have to create that private field. And he's like, no. Now you can just do like value equals field equals value dot trim, because now you have field and value. Field is the backing field, the value is the value that is being set.
Mm-hmm.
And you do dot trim on it. You could check for it null, obviously, things like that. And it just works. And you don't even have to change the getter at all. Like that's the thing is
Yeah.
you only use the field where you need to use the field. And that's the thing of beauty. Now, the reason I think that this was a preview feature is because it's also technically a breaking change. Because if you have a field,
Yeah.
like if you have a property somewhere in your app that is called field, then it will not work, right? So then you can use at field or this dot field and it will work the same. So it is something.
I'm one of those people. I have fields called field. I'll admit it. I'll be the first to admit it. But this is always the problem with language evolution with keywords. Anytime someone wants to add a keyword to a language, it's gonna break code. It just is because it wasn't a keyword before. Now it is a keyword. You just can't help it. So I think it had to be pretty minor. I don't think there's too many weirdos out there like me writing compilers, writing interpreters, writing things like that where you actually have a field called field. Also, it's a terrible name.
Unless you were like building a farming application, you need to go.
Oh,
You
yeah, I guess a physics simulator, like an electronic EMF, electromagnetic field. Yeah. Um, most people are writing first name, last name, not fields. So I'm gonna go with it's gonna break very few people, but it should be a very obvious break too. Like,
Yeah.
I'm curious how horrible. I could see the compiler error being actually kind of horrible now that I said it's an obvious break, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's gonna make everyone's life so much better. I mean, honestly, this feels a lot like the just running the code file from the command line. It's just a nicety. It's just like
Yeah, it makes
it's
sense.
2025. Like this language is I don't even know 20 years old. It's nice to see it just maturing and advancing and still making our lives better because C# was always supposed to be a productivity language.
Yep.
It's not supposed to be like a I don't know, it's not like a stupid Rust or a Go or something where it's trying to be like a low level system language. It's supposed to be for app development. It's supposed to be a comfortable language to write apps in. And it's nice to see them giving these quality of life improvements to devs.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine you're teaching someone C# for the first time. You don't need to tell them all about the ceremony of writing 18 lines of code to get access to this backing field. You say, oh, no, it's a field. And it's the same for all of them, right? So no matter what it is, it's just the field and it makes sense, which I love. So,
Yeah.
so
Hey, that's a small one, but man, that's a good one too. Because I am
good
gonna
one.
use that left and right. I use the underscore thing too. I don't like it. It's in my editor config. Private fields have I hate it. I think it's so ugly. It reminds me of my MFC Microsoft Foundation classes for C++. He had an M underscore on everything. Just
Yeah.
reminds me of the bad old days of Windows development. And so I'm going to be so happy to get rid of a bunch of these things.
Yeah, and I think it also helps with some trimming stuff and a bunch of other stuff. Like I know that the MVVM community toolkit for .NET uses these things because I was
Yeah.
upset at it, and it's like, oh, you have to go turn on this preview feature. I think I complained about it, but now I understand what it's doing. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go do that. And obviously in .NET 10 it won't matter because it'll just be on by default.
Yeah, and we kind of totally lied at that part, but this is a huge benefit to code generators because they don't have to go around making up field names that could conflict with your
Other
field names.
names, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Because the compiler is going to generate something it knows no one else has access to.
beautiful. Yeah,
So it's great for the code generators doing like partial classes and partial properties and that kind of stuff.
exactly. All right, well, Frank, those are my 3 things that I learned today at the keynote.
Bravo, man. You made it through sore throat, different time zone, crazy internet. No, I'm sure Europe's internet is fantastic. But hey, I hope your throat is feeling better. I hope the conference keeps being a success. And I hope you get out into that beautiful Spanish sun.
We're going out. It's about 95 degrees here, so we're
Okay, that's too
low
hot. Stay
humidity.
inside. Stay inside.
Low humidity. So it's good.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Emerge Conflict. So until next week, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.